Amelia Earhart's Disappearance by Piper Blanchard. I chose this general aviation accident since I have a great admiration for Amelia Earhart, and I find this accident fascinating as there are a couple theories revolving around it. Amelia Earhart and her navigator Fred Noonan set to take off June 1st, 1937 from Oakland, California. Their last known stop was a very small island, Howland Island on the Pacific. When they set off, they crashed into the ocean, never to be found again. The most obvious cause was them running out of fuel. This is probably most likely, as running out of fuel has always been a common cause of pilots crashing. There is an extreme amount of information on the importance of proper fuel planning. This is why we learn at the very beginning of our training to calculate fuel based off numerous factors. The Aviation Instructor's Handbook talks about risk management and models that help with pilots assessing their safety of flight. One that applies to this accident is the 5P model. The FAA talks about this model when they state, the pilot knew about the vacuum pump failure and the instrument meteorological conditions ahead of him. The faulty equipment generated an aircraft or A hazard, and IMC generated an aircraft or V hazard. The combination of those two hazards created an unacceptable risk once the pilot decided to penetrate the weather. In addition, it is possible that the pilot's desire to get to his destination created an external pressure, or E hazard. Finally, the pilot's assumption that he could control the aircraft with critical instruments inoperative created a pilot or P hazard. The risk assessment matrix indicates catastrophic consequences were possible from loss of control in IMC, and the likelihood of loss of control after a vacuum pump failure was at least occasional or even probable. Thus, the overall risk presented was high or red and needed mitigation of some kind. This concludes that a pilot should utilize resources that the FAA provides. Not that Amelia had as many resources at this point in time, but nowadays pilots need to use all resources and risk management models to the fullest extent. Nonetheless, these precautions can be made and these risks be mitigated entirely if fuel calculations are done in advance. This is also discussed by the FAA when discussing the aircraft evaluation in the PAVE checklist when they mention the questions a pilot should ask themselves. What limitations will the aircraft impose upon the trip? Ask the following questions. Is this aircraft in the right aircraft for the flight? Am I familiar with and current in this aircraft? Aircraft performance figures and the AFM are based on a brand new aircraft flown by a professional test pilot. Can this aircraft use runways available for the trip with adequate margin of safety under the conditions to be flown? And more. This is just an example out of a POH. In conclusion, risk management is a necessity for pilots. There's always a risk when it comes to flying. All we can do is mitigate it with proper pre-flight actions on yourself, the aircraft, environment, and pressures. And here are my references. Thank you.